And it was at the top of the mountain when this big question came in, and it was the scariest question. How would you feel if it was all gone? Who would you be if it was all burnt to the ground or taken away from you? Who are you when you don't have these identities or this need to be important? Today, we're going to talk a little bit about success. There is a definition that's in all of our heads as to where success actually came from. So I want you to kind of take a minute and just think about it. When you were a kid, right? Where did that first definition of success come from for you? This is a really important point because almost everything that we do and how we operate today exists from a place of what we thought was the right thing to do back when we were kids, right? We talk about this a lot on our calls. So success. What does the definition of success look like for you? For a lot of us, myself included, I was surrounded and grew up with this thing where everyone was in pursuit of this thing called money, right? If only I had enough money, if only we had this, we could do this, we could have this, we could be secure, we could be comfortable, we could live in this town, we could go on that vacation. So that became the part of who I became. That became me, right? Always chasing that, chasing what ultimately became for me the almighty dollar. So think about that for a little bit, right? Like in your life, especially in this Western civilization, this culture that we have here, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today in this session. We have such a tremendous focus on success being equated to money or to a bank account or to being able to meet our expenses, being able to go on that vacation, being able to open the business, being able to all of those things, right? And there's a level of freedom that comes from that. But if we attach our definition of success to those things, to bank accounts, to cash flows, that could be dangerous for our health. And I'm a walking example. Most of you watching this might know my story, but that became my entire path. My entire path from early childhood when I was not getting the love or attention that I wanted or needed from my parents. I remember having a fight with my father over a toothbrush when we were 14 years old. I was 14 years old. And then I didn't see him again for about 7 years. And I share that with now, not really to dwell on that because I've moved past it, but at the same time, what kind of story does that give a 14-year-old? Right? And that started me on a whole journey of, well, if only I could be big enough, if only I could be important enough, if only I could attract and hold enough money, right? Because if money equates to importance, or if money equates to freedom, then money equates to, that's the biggest value I could probably go after, right? So as I went through high school and then college, what could I do to be loud so that I couldn't be ignored? What could I do to have more control? What could I do to be more, quote unquote, successful, right? To have my voice finally heard. And that turned into a whole bunch of different things. Running for student government, becoming president of the campus activities board, being able to run and start and control all of the events on campus, right? Like I became the guy. Not even because I really, really wanted to see fun events and things on campus. I didn't know this until recently, right? We wanted to have the control. I have to be the voice that's loud because if I'm this person, then they have to listen to me. As I'm sharing this story for me, maybe you can see some similarities in you. Were you not heard or acknowledged as a kid when you needed to be? And what things in your life did you chase or go after so that you could be heard and understood and acknowledged? So as I moved past college and then moved into the career path and career world, I had given up on trying to be a politician or a lawyer because no one likes politicians or lawyers, and I also needed to be liked. That was my second really big story or hurdle. And I never really got over it, right? Like being able to be the connector, being able to vibe with the sports and athletic people and also, right, the drama people and also the people that didn't necessarily go to class. And like that was in school. And then moving that into careers, like I became the person that could just make everything okay. I could get everybody to get along. I could mold myself to whatever group that I was in, which served me deeply as I moved into a career path and served me deeply as I then moved into the self-employment world in real estate, because I had such a high emotional intelligence, right? You could walk into a room and read it immediately as people were in there. And you know exactly where your safety nets were, who you needed to talk to, what you needed to do. So in that world, it served me deeply, but it also made me now have to please others and be accepted and push down my authentic voice or my feelings or my boundaries when I felt like I was going to cause a disruption. Didn't want to cause a disruption. I wanted to be the thing that made everybody else okay. Now that we're adults, we can look back and observe all of these things and the way we operated. And moving forward into my self-employment world, now we get into my real estate career. And without even knowing it, I started my real estate journey from the corporate world in order to have this thing called financial freedom. This thing where I don't have to work and trade time for money. I can actually work on my own and have finally the active income to buy passive investments, to then have the passive income exceed my expenses every single month. Thank you, book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, right? It changed everything for a lot of us entrepreneurs, especially in the real estate space. But little by little by little by little, I forgot about that initial dream. And I started to just start to work on doing deals for the sake of doing more deals, having more houses and units for the sake of having more houses and units, building a team that was bigger and bigger and bigger just to show the other competitors in my space that we were the biggest, we were the best, and we were in pursuit of that being the biggest and the best. What I now realize was just importance, significance, value. And as time went on, we became Greater Boston's #1 home buyer, and we morphed into different states. And we even were doing it for the right reasons and trying to help people more than we were by even trying to make money. But by helping people, I wanted to help more people and more people and more people and build my team bigger and bigger and bigger. And impact became one of our core values. And impact for me meant not just helping 4 or 5 or 10 people, it meant helping thousands upon thousands and then 10,000s and hundreds of thousands. You can imagine that put some pressure on targets and goals and what we were striving to achieve, and I was pushing my people towards. And it all came to a head when I was on top of, I had a massive divorce, my second one. And after my second divorce, I was 2 years just emotionally drained and financially drained, and my body completely shut down. And I ended up in the hospital to the point where I knew I needed a physical challenge to get me to at least care for myself again, to at least start training. So a few friends and I booked a hike on Mount Kilimanjaro, the tallest freestanding mountain in the world in Africa. And we embarked on this journey, this 8-day journey up to the top. And I'll never forget, almost to the top of the mountain. And this thing came in so heavy because I had just hated waking up and going to the office. I hated the constant pressures that I was putting on myself. I hated my life being imprisoned in just 18 Zoom meetings a week and constant accountability and constant management and constant masterminds and traveling. And I had importance and I was significant. And they had me speaking at all these events as keynote speakers. And by being part of the masterminds, I was giving to all of these other high-level people. I had purpose, I had significance, and I had value. But I hated my life. I hated getting up in the morning to go to an office to do the same thing over and over and over again. It didn't matter that I even liked the people I worked with. I didn't have fulfillment. And I definitely did not have the freedom that I had sought out for. And it was at the top of the mountain when this big question came in, and it was the scariest question. How would you feel if it was all gone? Who would you be if it was all burnt to the ground or taken away from you? Who are you when you don't have these identities or this need to be important? This is how these questions kept changing. And as these questions were coming in and I'm walking down the mountain, I'm like, the scariest part for me, when I remember that question, would you be okay if it was all gone? And the answer came back as a yes. In fact, I need this to be all gone. I need time and space for me to find myself. And with that, the universe put in so many things into place, where I went on my first meditation retreat and I had found a whole bunch of I had visuals and all of these things that were happening. And whether I liked it or not, the universe put things into place where I was left with shutting down 5 of the 7 companies. I was left with an awful lot of mess to clean up from that because it wasn't a sexy exit, let me tell you that. And from being an 8-figure real estate entrepreneur who had that significance, who had that importance, who had that value, I had to find out who I really, really, really was. But I couldn't do that when I had the addiction of more deals, the addiction of more units, the addiction of more cash flows every single month, the addiction of being bigger and better, the addiction of always setting higher and higher targets. And it reminded me, my definition of success at one point was this cash flow, was the bank account, was being bigger and more significant. What if I just had the wrong definition of success? And then realizing, as a human, through all of my healing work and whatever you want to call it, energy stuff that I never believed in for years and years, what if we are all that's needed to change our definition of success? What if we were taught that success is the bank account and the chasing of money or the almighty dollar, or the chasing of dopamine or addiction to deals or being the biggest and the best, making a name for ourselves? But that's the story. It's all just in pursuit of being acknowledged, of being heard, of being understood, and possibly loved by the people who we wanted to love us. Where does that show up for you in your life or your career or your business? Because I also guarantee you, you're going to repeat these patterns with your children unless you take the look from the top, which is what my only job is right now, to look at me from the hawk's eye view and see what's working and see what's not, and what served me in my life and no longer what serves us, because that is the true definition of freedom. So with me, with my changing definition of success, I started looking at other people's definitions of success. One of them that really spoke to me was Ralph Waldo Emerson's poem, right? What is success? And he talks in that poem and says, to laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate the beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition, or to know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded. That was the poet's definition. So now's the moment I heard this definition and I contrasted that with what we were taught, right? With my version of success being chasing the almighty dollar and the bank accounts and the significance in order to have the voice and have the identity that people would look up to me and I could provide value and I had the authority in the space. But now that gives me an opportunity to redefine what success is for me and for my family. And you get to do this now too. So I'm going to now share my new definition of success. And while you're listening to my definition, I want you to start to think about for you, feel into for you, what definitions can you have for success in your life? And it doesn't mean that money doesn't have to be a part of it, but what other terms, other definitions, other measurements that you can put in your life that would be success to you? Some of mine are, my loved ones know that they are loved by me. This is when I know I'm successful when my loved ones know that they are loved by me. I'm able to be fully present in both the big and in the small moments of life. I can wake up and ask, what do I want to do today? Who do I want to be? What do I want to create today? I work on projects that excite me and allow me to do my best work. And the converse side of that, alternative side to that is, if anything does not excite me, if anything comes on my desk that I used to just follow and chase because it had a good dollar amount assigned to it, I now say no. That is an energetic boundary that allows everything else to be attracted into my life. My passive revenue exceeds my lifestyle needs. It's still very easy, even for those that have nothing or those that are millions and millions in debt, which I was, to find a passion and to put that into practice so that your active income can start to exceed your monthly expenses. Financial freedom is still definitely part of the success journey. I can live anywhere in the world that I choose. I can disappear for several months with no effect on my income, knowing that that's just one of many energy sources. There are only positive, uplifting, and challenging people in my life. I wear whatever I want all the time. I have no time obligations or deadlines except the ones that I choose. And then my year is full of rich experiences, filled with emotion, filled with sensations, filled with what it's like to be a human on the planet. I want to go with the time and obligations too, because that really spoke to me. When I realized I was in this imprisonment of 18, 20 Zoom meetings a week and accountability calls and recruiting and opening up new states and opening up new markets and this business that I was constantly sharing and pushing it with, it was a hard realization when I realized no one did it to me. I did that to myself. But the beautiful part of realizing that you are the direct result of all the stories, beliefs, and subconscious programming that you've had since childhood. The beauty of that is when you realize and can be aware of all of those stories and programs, you also now have complete authority and control to change them, to create new stories, new programs, new beliefs that shape your thinking, that shape your feelings, and that create an entirely different world and outcome for who you now choose to be. So I want to leave you with, who do you choose to be? What is your definition of success now that you know you get to choose an entirely new definition of success? Feel the feelings, let them all come in, right? Because we're human and we're all messy and we're imperfect. There's no such thing as perfection, there's only progress. So with that in mind, I invite you to take 15, 20, 25 minutes. Put on some music that you really enjoy, make yourself a cup of tea or some coffee, and just open up a journal or open up your Coach or ChatGPT and go through your story of your life, what programs served you up until now, and how can you have more success in your life, knowing that success is in the form of so many other freedoms. Appreciate you watching. Check you on the next video.